And I've said to him, I said, look, there's a difference between talent and great. Those are two different things. It's not enough just to be talented. You can be talented without any responsibility. You can't be great without any responsibility.
The reality is this: 99% of NBA players teams would have moved on from over this last 6 years. Because Zion Williamson is so immensely talented, the Pelicans stick with him as their hopeful franchise player. If he wants it to work in New Orleans, it's got to be now.
It's September 23rd, 2025. The New Orleans Pelicans are holding their media day. It's pretty routine stuff, right? And then Zion Williamson shocks the entire NBA. When I first heard about this, I originally thought that this is pretty much Ben Simmons posting jump shot footage in the offseason. It seems like every single year we see Zion Williamson lose weight, but I'm not lying when I say this might be the most dramatic physical transformation I've ever seen an NBA player undergo since LeBron James lost weight before his second stint with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And here's how he looked in 2013 with the Miami Heat. This is how he looked in 2014 with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I know you guys are gonna hit me with, Mike, we've heard this before, but trust me, this time actually looks significantly different, and I have the receipts to prove it. But here's what's really messing with me. What if I told you that Zion Williamson could have potentially lost too much weight? What if this transformation that everyone's celebrating might actually be a problem? I personally don't think it is a problem. It could be a problem, but once I show you how significant the weight loss is, you'll see what I mean. This isn't just another Zion Williamson lost weight story. This is the story of how one man's body transformation might completely reshape the entire Western Conference. So real quick before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications so you can stay up to date with the brand new NBA season starting up again. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. I'll be the first to admit I may have been a little bit too aggressive on our last free square. We still hit on my Instagram story multiple times over the weekend, and I promise you this play is going to be way safer. PrizePicks is now giving us a Jalen Hurts free square. They're going to give us 2 more free squares to close out September. I'm going to create a much safer play for us for Monday Night Football. Now, personally, I'm saving this free square for later on in the weekend, and if you want to take advantage of this promo, make sure you use my promo code microphone when you sign up for PrizePicks to get $50 in free plays when you make a play of $5 or more. Once you sign up, feel free to tail this slip for Thursday Night Football. I have Trey Benson stepping up for the Cardinals in his first official start, finding the end zone at least once. His kicker, Chad Ryland, will kick 2 field goals, Sam Darnold will throw at least 1 pass touchdown, and Jackson Smith-Njigba will have at least 50 receiving yards. I'm personally saving the Jalen Hurts free square until next weekend's games, but if you add the Hurts free square to this, you can 8.5x your money, but if not, you can still 4.5x your money by tailing the slip. Now, if you already signed up for PrizePicks, I teamed up with Fantasy Aces, who have been profiting on a daily basis in multiple sports, in the WAP link in the description down below, and I also give away my picks on Instagram. And thank you, PrizePicks, for sponsoring today's video. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So picture this. It's Media Day 2024. Zion Williamson shows up and people say, oh wow, he looks good. He's in shape, which for Zion, 2024 was pretty much in shape. But you fast forward 1 year later to 2025 Media Day and there are literal Ozempic allegations coming out against this guy. Bro looks like he went through that Captain America super soldier transformation. And Shams gave us a little bit of an insight to behind the scenes as to what caused this.
Joe Dumars has made it clear publicly and privately that he's going to be holding Zion Williamson accountable this season. If he can clean that stuff up, clean up the leadership side, if he can stay healthy, Zion Williamson has all those qualities to be a real game changer for this team. If he's healthy and on the court, they have playoff expectations.
According to ESPN's Michael C. Wright, and this is crazy, Zion weighed in at 264 pounds just 2 days before that media day. 264 pounds. For context, when the New Orleans Pelicans drafted him in 2019, 2019, he was listed at 284, but here's where it gets wild. Multiple reports suggest he ballooned up to as much as 330 pounds at certain points in his career. That means we're potentially looking at a 66-pound weight loss here. Now, I know what you might be thinking.
Mike, we've been down this road before.
And you're absolutely right. Let me take you on a little journey of Zion Williamson, quote unquote, losing weight. You remember 2021? Zion Williamson shows up to training camp. The famous masked Batman photo just dropped. The Pelicans are all excited, talking about how he's in the best shape of his life. David Griffin, the Pelicans executive VP, is out here saying Zion looks incredible. What happens next? Well, dude plays 0 games that entire season. 0. Nada. Nothing. A foot injury keeps him out the entire year. Then we got 2022, another media day, another Zion lost weight headline. Willie Green, the Pelicans head coach, is telling everyone how impressed he is with Zion's conditioning.
The beauty in it is good to see him on the floor, and I think he's feeling more normal, the fact that he gets to play basketball, and that's what he wants to do, that's what he loves to do. We just want him to get as healthy as he can and continue to progress in that way.
The result, 29 games played. That's it. Less than half of the season. 2023 rolls around, and guess what the story is? You already know. Zion's in great shape, ready to dominate. He actually plays in 70 games, which for Zion is basically an Iron Man season. But then the playoffs come, and what happens? Hamstring injury in the play-in game. The Pelicans get swept, and Zion watches from the bench. 2024, same song, different verse. He shows up looking good, not as good as this year though. Everyone's still hyped, and then boom, plays 30 games before a back injury ends his season in March. So when I tell you that Pelicans fans have trust issues when it comes to Zion's weight loss stories, you gotta understand where they're coming from. It's like being in a toxic relationship where your ex keeps promising that they've changed, and every time you believe them, they let you down again. But here's why 2025 feels different, and I mean really different. First off, the visual evidence is overwhelming. I'm looking at these side-by-side photos from 2024 Media Day versus 2025, and it's not even the same person. In 2024, Zion still had that thick, powerful build we're used to. Baby face, broad shoulders, that tank-like physique that made him look unstoppable going to the rim. 2025 Zion? Bro looks like he could run a marathon. His face is chiseled, jawline is sharp enough to cut glass. His arms are more defined but noticeably smaller. Even his posture looks different. He's standing taller, moving differently. This isn't just I lost a few pounds for the camera's weight loss. This is a complete body reconstruction. And the timing of this transformation is fascinating when you consider what happened this past season. Remember, Zion played just 30 games before that back injury shut him down. That means he had from late March all the way to September almost 6 months to focus solely on his body transformation. No game pressure, no trying to maintain weight while playing back-to-backs. Just pure focus on shaping his physique. And looks like the new hiring of Joe Dumars that we've all been scrutinizing throughout the offseason, primarily because he's made some very questionable moves. Like giving up an unprotected first-round pick so they can move up from the number 23 overall pick to the number 13 overall pick to select raw Maryland center Derek Queen. It seems like Joe Dumars is putting pressure on Zion to lose weight, and it's working.
You can be talented without any responsibility. You can't be great without any responsibility. You just can't. That's not what greatness is. And so let's just make sure that we are responsible and accountable. Zion has been great. I've not had any issues with him. He's been working, really pushing himself hard. So I've been happy with him this summer. But still, at the end of the day, man, you got to be responsible and accountable for everything you do.
Even Zion himself is saying that he feels like he's in college again.
We came up with a plan, and from boxing to working out on the football field a lot to just different random workouts. And during that time frame last year, I really felt a shift in my body to where I would look at him and go, dude, it feels good to feel good. I haven't felt like this since college, high school, just where I can walk in the gym and I'm like, I feel good.
If you go back to Zion's Duke highlights and compare to how he looked the moment he entered into the NBA, it's two completely separate players. According to reports from multiple sources close to the situation, Zion completely overhauled his lifestyle. We're talking about hiring a personal chef, working with sports scientists, implementing cutting-edge recovery techniques, the whole 9 yards. This wasn't some crash diet situation. This was a scientific approach to body transformation. Dr. Marcus Elliott, a sports scientist who's worked with NBA NBA players, was quoted saying that for elite athletes like Zion, it's not just about losing weight, it's about optimizing body composition, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. Now, I need to talk about the elephant in the room. If I ever asked this a few years ago, you would have called me a madman, but could it be that Zion lost a little too much weight? Think about what made Zion special coming out of Duke. It wasn't just his athleticism. Plenty of guys in the NBA can jump out of the gym. It was the combination of that athleticism with his sheer mass and power. Zion at 285 pounds, moving like a guard was a cheat code. Defenders literally bounced off of him. He could bully his way to the rim against anybody. Now at 264 pounds, we're looking at a different player, and I'm not saying that's automatically bad, but it certainly does raise some serious questions. Can he still impose his will in the paint against guys like Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and Giannis? Is he going to be able to absorb contact the same way? Remember, part of what made Zion unstoppable was that defenders knew that they couldn't body him up. They had to resort to fouling or just getting out of the way. At this new weight, does he lose that intimidation factor? There's also the injury concern from a different angle. Sometimes when athletes lose significant weight quickly, their body mechanics change. Muscles and tendons that were used to support a certain mass suddenly have different stress points. We've seen this with other players who've gone through major body transformations. Sometimes it takes a full season for their body to adjust to moving at a different weight. And then we have Brian Windhorst, ESPN's senior insider, saying that 99% of NBA players and teams would have moved on from someone with Zion's injury history over the last 6 years.
The reality is this: 99% of NBA players teams would have moved on from over this last 6 years. Because Zion Williamson is so immensely talented, the Pelicans stick with him as their hopeful franchise player. If he wants it to work in New Orleans, it's got to be now. He's got almost $90 million over the next 2 seasons that are non-guaranteed. The Pelicans could cut him. In the apron era, that's something that they could do. And he would get another job, but he wouldn't make $90 million and he wouldn't be the franchise player. He's got a lot to play for this year.
That's real talk. Zion's played 214 games out of a possible 471 in his career. That's less than half. He's never played in a real playoff game, not one. The Pelicans made the playoffs twice with him on the roster, and both times he was in street clothes. This weight loss, this transformation, it feels like Zion's last stand in New Orleans, and maybe that's exactly the motivation he needed. Think about the pressure he's under. The Pelicans just signed him to that massive extension, 5 years, potentially worth up to $231 million if he hits incentives. They traded for DeJounte Murray to pair with him before Murray got hurt. And this past offseason, they traded for Jordan Poole, and they made that questionable draft day trade where they gave up an unprotected first-round pick in the 2026 NBA draft. And typically, the Pelicans are in the draft lottery, so that's a lot at stake here. If the Pelicans don't make it to the playoffs this year, they're effectively screwed. The Western Conference isn't getting any easier either. You got Wemby and the Spurs on the come up, the Thunder looking like a dynasty. The Lakers and Warriors are still hanging around. Denver made significant strides trading for Cam Johnson and bringing back Bruce Brown. The Houston Rockets just traded for Kevin Durant. If Zion Williamson doesn't deliver this year, when will he? And that brings up the mental side of this transformation. Multiple reports talk about how Zion worked with sports psychologists during his rehab. This wasn't just about dropping pounds, it was about changing his entire mindset about being a professional athlete. So when you're as naturally gifted as Zion, you can coast on talent for a long time. In high school, he was bigger, stronger, and more athletic than everybody. At Duke, same thing, 1 year of domination. Even in the NBA, when he's played, he's been incredible. The guy is averaging 24.6 points on 56.7% shooting for his career. But the NBA isn't just about talent, it's about longevity, consistency, and availability. And the best ability is availability. And Zion's finally understanding that. This weight loss represents him taking control of the one thing he can control, his body and his preparation. Now let's talk about what this could mean for his actual game. At 264 pounds, Zion's essentially the same weight as LeBron James. Think about that for a second. LeBron's been dominating the league for 2 decades at that weight, but he's also 2 inches taller than Zion Williamson, so we're looking at a completely different player archetype here. The optimistic view is Zion becomes more like Draymond Green, not in playing style at all, but at least in terms of versatility. He can guard multiple positions, rotation, switch on defense more effectively, run the floor harder, play more minutes without getting gassed. The Pelicans could go super small with him at the 5, creating matchup nightmares. His knees and joints take less pounding, potentially keeping him healthier. His lateral quickness improves, making him a much better perimeter defender. And offensively, imagine Zion with even more explosion because he's carrying less weight. The first step could be even quicker, the elevation even higher. The pessimistic view, and I don't think I've ever seen this before in NBA history, but the pessimistic view is he loses what made him special. Without that bulk, he becomes just another athletic wing in a league full of them. The bruising, bulldozing style that defined his game disappears. He becomes easier to move off his spot in the post, easier to contest at the rim. But here's what I think is really gonna happen, and this is where it gets really juicy. I think we're about to see Zion 3.0, a completely reimagined version of himself. Not the bowling ball from Duke, not the injury-prone heavyweight from his early NBA years, but something entirely new. Reports suggest that he's been working extensively on his jump shot during the rehab. At 264 pounds with an improved jumper, that's not a power forward anymore. That's a complete basketball player. Someone who can punish you inside, step out and hit threes, grab and go in transition, guard multiple positions. Basically, what Ben Simmons was supposed to be but never became. What, you thought Ben Simmons was going to make it through a video without catching a stray? And the timing wise, this couldn't be more perfect for the Pelicans. I mean, if you think about it, the Pelicans have a complete team. They've got Herb Jones and Trey Murphy developing into legitimate two-way players. They added DeJounte Murray for playmaking, Jordan Poole who could spot up around the perimeter as Zion Williamson drives inside. The real test is going to come in those first few weeks of the season. How does his body hold up playing back-to-backs at this new weight? Can he finish through contact? Does he have the same explosion after playing 30 minutes? But the biggest question, and I mean the biggest question, is whether this weight loss is sustainable. Because here's the dirty little secret about weight loss, especially for athletes. Maintaining it is harder than losing it. When you're playing 82 games, traveling constantly, dealing with the physical grind of an NBA season, it's incredibly difficult to maintain a specific weight. Zion's gonna have to be more disciplined about his diet on the road. No more late night team dinners at steakhouses, no more relaxing in the off season. This has to be a lifestyle change, not just a media day post-op. And that's where Joe Dumars' comments became so important. When he talks about responsibility and the difference between talent and greatness, he's talking about exactly this: the day-to-day commitment when nobody's watching, the decisions you make at 11 p.m. when the team's in Dallas and everyone's going out to Terry Black's to eat some Texas barbecue, the workout you do on an off day when your body is sore and you just want to rest. You know what's crazy though? If Zion can stay healthy, and that's still a massive if, the Pelicans might have accidentally stumbled into the perfect modern NBA team. Think about it. Zion at 264 pounds can legitimately play the 2 through the 5. Herb Jones can guard 1 through 4. Trey Murphy's becoming a knockdown shooter who can defend. Jordan Poole can create his own shot. In a league that's increasingly about versatility and positionless basketball, the Pelicans could be ahead of the curve. They could run a 5-out offense with Zion at center, or go big with him at the 3. The lineup flexibility with a healthy Zion is insane, but we gotta keep it real. This is still Zion Williamson we're talking about. The dude who's missed more games than he's played. The guy who's been in the best shape of his life 4 times already. Pelicans fans have been hurt before, and they're not trying to get their hearts broken again. The pressure on him this season is different than anything he's faced before. It's not just about making the playoffs anymore. It's about proving that he can be the franchise player the Pelicans thought they were drafting. It's about justifying that massive contract. It's about showing the league that all that potential can translate into actual production over a full season. And here's something that we haven't talked about on this channel for a while: trade rumors. If Zion can't stay healthy this season, if this transformation doesn't lead to him playing 65 plus games and the Pelicans being competitive, you gotta wonder if they start listening to trade offers. Can you imagine Zion on a team like the Heat with their conditioning program, or with the Spurs learning from Pop and playing with Wemby? Well, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Right now, in this moment, we gotta appreciate what we're seeing. A 25-year-old, supremely talented player who's finally taking his career seriously. A guy who looked in the mirror and decided to change everything about how he approaches his profession. The numbers back it up too. That 264-pound weigh-in would make him lighter than he's been since before Duke. We're essentially getting rookie Zion's weight with 6 years of NBA experience and skill development. That's terrifying for the rest of the league if he can stay on the court. So let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think Zion Williamson's weight loss is real this time? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.